My name is Marcus. In my family, love wasn't unconditional. It was measured by your bank account. My older brother, Julian, was the golden child. He wore designer suits, drove a leased BMW, and talked about crypto all day. I was the disappointment. I wore thrift store clothes, drove a beat-up Honda, and worked 60 hours a week in a hot, greasy kitchen. 5 years ago, my mother organized a massive family reunion at L'Orchidee, the most expensive French restaurant in the city. I saved up for a month just to afford my portion of the meal. I even bought a new, clean button-down shirt so I wouldn't stand out. But as I walked up to the grand entrance, my mother stepped out of the shadows and physically blocked the glass doors. She looked me up and down, her nose wrinkling as if she had just smelled rotten milk. "What are you doing here, Marcus?" she asked, her voice dripping with venom. "Did you actually think you were invited?" I held up the group text she had sent everyone. "You said 7 p.m., Mom. I brought cash to cover my plate." She snatched the phone from my hand and laughed. A cold, sharp sound that made the valet driver look over. "That text was a mistake," she hissed. "Look at you. Your shoes are scuffed. That shirt looks like it's from a discount bin. Julian's new fiancée is inside. Her family is old money. I will not let you walk in there and embarrass us looking like a beggar." "Mom," I whispered, my chest tightening. "I haven't seen Aunt Sarah or the cousins in 2 years. I just want to say hi." She stepped closer, pointing a manicured finger hard into my chest. "You can't afford to breathe the air in this place, Marcus. You're a fry cook. You're too poor for this family." She pulled a crumpled $20 bill from her purse and threw it onto the pavement at my feet. "Go to the drive-thru down the street. Tell everyone you were sick. And don't you dare come inside and ruin Julian's night." She turned on her heel and walked back into the warm, glowing restaurant, leaving me standing in the freezing rain. I didn't pick up the $20. I just looked up at the golden sign of L'Orchidee. I didn't cry. The sadness instantly evaporated, replaced by a cold, relentless fire. I promised myself 2 things that night. First, I would never ask for my mother's love again. And second, one day, I was going to own the very building she just kicked me out of. I walked away from L'Orchidee that night and deleted every single member of my family from my phone. No dramatic exit. No angry text messages. I just vanished into absolute, suffocating silence. They thought I was sulking. They thought I was just the depressed fry cook, hiding in my cheap apartment. They didn't know that rejection is the most potent fuel on earth if you know how to burn it. For the next 5 years, I didn't work 60 hours a week. I worked 100. I left the diner and begged my way into the kitchen of a Michelin-starred chef who was known for breaking his staff. He broke me. And then, he rebuilt me. I learned everything. Not just how to cook, but how to source ingredients, how to manage food costs, and how to read the psychology of a dining room. 3 years in, I took a massive risk. I took out a loan and opened a tiny, 10-table fusion restaurant in a rundown part of the city. I called it the Crucible. For the first 6 months, I slept on flour sacks in the pantry. But then, a major food critic wandered in by accident. His review didn't just put me on the map, it set the map on fire. The Crucible became the hardest reservation to get in the state. Within 2 years, I opened 3 more locations. I had investors throwing millions at me just to franchise my name. My personal net worth skyrocketed into the 8-figure range. I bought a penthouse. I wore tailored suits. I was dining with mayors and celebrities. But to my family, I was still a ghost. I kept my personal social media completely blank. I used a corporate holding company, Vanguard Culinary, to own my restaurants, so my name was never on the public paperwork. Every Thanksgiving, I would get a single, condescending text from my mother. Asterisk, Julian just got promoted. Hope you're still employed at whatever diner you're at. Don't ask us for money. Asterisk. I never replied. I just smiled, sipped my $500 bottle of wine, and looked out over the city skyline. I was waiting. Because in the restaurant industry, you learn that the best dishes take time to reduce. And then, in year 5, the universe finally served up the main course. I was sitting in my office reviewing real estate listings when my broker called me with a desperate seller. "Marcus," the broker said, "the owners of L'Orchidee are going bankrupt. They are liquidating everything tomorrow. The building, the staff, the brand." My heart stopped. The very restaurant where my mother had thrown a $20 bill at my feet was going under. But that wasn't the best part. "Oh, and Marcus," the broker added, "you won't believe who they just hired as their new head hostess last week. Some older woman. Apparently, her son lost all his money in a crypto scam, and she's working to pay his rent." I leaned back in my leather chair, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across my face. "Buy it," I told the broker. "Buy L'Orchidee. Pay whatever they want. But keep my name completely off the record." Before I took the keys to L'Orchidee, I hired a private investigator to look into my family's sudden financial collapse. The report he handed me was a masterpiece of poetic justice. Julian, the crypto genius, hadn't just lost his own money. He had taken out massive, high-interest loans against our mother's house to buy into a volatile meme coin. When the market crashed, it didn't just dip, it evaporated. Julian's leased BMW was repossessed in the middle of the night. His old money fiancée took off her diamond ring, left it on his kitchen counter, and blocked his number. He was left with $500,000 in debt, facing eviction, and crying on our mother's sofa. But my mother's delusion was stronger than titanium. She refused to accept that her golden child was a failure. "The market is just jealous of Julian's vision," she told her friends, right before the bank foreclosed on her house. To save her precious son from having to get a peasant job, my 60-year-old mother, a woman who had never worked a day in her life, was forced to enter the workforce. She used her old country club connections to beg for a job as the head hostess at Lorcadie. She thought it would be glamorous. She thought she would just stand at a podium, wear a nice dress, and sip champagne with the rich guests. She had no idea that the restaurant industry is a meat grinder. I spent my first week as the new owner observing the restaurant through the hidden security cameras in my corporate office. My mother was a disaster. She treated the waiters like personal servants. She snapped at the busboys. She would constantly comp drinks for her wealthy friends, pretending she had the authority to do so. The general manager, a strict French man named Henri, called me on my private line on day 3. "Boss," Henri sighed. "This new hostess, she is unbearable. She told a busboy to polish her shoes. She steals pastries from the kitchen. Can I please fire her?" I leaned back in my chair, watching the live feed of my mother aggressively pointing her finger at a young waitress. "No, Henri," I said softly. "Do not fire her. In fact, give her whatever she wants. Let her think she runs the place." "But sir, she is ruining the morale," Henri protested. "Trust me, Henri. The oven is just preheating. I want her to feel as comfortable and powerful as possible, right before I turn up the gas." "Oh, and Henri," I added, looking at the calendar. "My corporate transition is complete. I'll be coming in to inspect the kitchen personally next Friday night." Friday night, the busiest shift of the week. Friday night arrived, bringing with it a torrential downpour and a fully booked dining room. I didn't pull up to the front entrance in my sports car. I parked 3 blocks away and walked through the alley, entering Lorcadie through the rusted metal service doors. The kitchen was a war zone of shouting chefs, clanking pans, and the smell of roasting garlic and searing steaks. Henri, the general manager, was waiting for me. He looked nervous, clutching his clipboard like a shield. "Mr. Vanguard," Henri whispered, using my corporate alias. "The staff knows the new owner is here, but I haven't told them your real name." As requested, I nodded, pulling a pristine, unmarked white chef's coat off the rack and slipping it on. "Treat me like a line cook tonight, Henri. I want to see the disease before I prescribe the cure." I took a station near the expo window, perfectly positioned to see the dining room without being easily recognized from the front. I kept my head down, my knife moving in a hypnotic blur as I prepped garnishes. Through the swinging kitchen doors, I finally saw her in person. My mother. She was wearing a tailored black dress that she definitely couldn't afford on a hostess salary. She stood at the podium not like an employee, but like a queen surveying her kingdom. It took exactly 20 minutes for her to break protocol. The swinging doors burst open, and my mother marched into the kitchen, her heels clicking aggressively against the grease-stained tiles. She completely bypassed Henri and walked right up to the expo line. "Henri, where's my caviar order for table 4? She barked, waving a handwritten ticket in the air. "Ma'am, table 4 didn't order caviar," a young, terrified waitress stammered. "They didn't," my mother sneered. "But they are friends of mine from the country club. I'm sending it out as a compliment from the house. Now hurry up." She turned and looked right at me, standing only 5 feet away. I kept my head down, meticulously plating a salmon dish. She didn't recognize me. To her, a man in a chef's coat was invisible. A peasant. A piece of kitchen equipment. "Hey you. Chop chop," she snapped, pointing her perfectly manicured finger at my cutting board. "Stop playing with the fish and get my caviar. And make sure the blinis are warm this time. You cooks are moving like turtles tonight." I didn't look up. I just said, "Yes, chef," in a low, muffled voice. She scoffed, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "Henri, the new owner is an idiot for not firing these lazy cooks. Anyway, I need the largest booth in the back reserved for 8 p.m. Henri frowned. "We are fully booked, Diane. There are no booths available." "Then kick someone out," she hissed, her eyes going wide with entitlement. "My son, Julian, is coming tonight. He's celebrating a very big business deal. I want the tomahawk steaks, the vintage Bordeaux, and the truffle sides. And Henri," she added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "put it all under the manager's comp tab. My boy deserves a treat." Henri looked past her, making direct eye contact with me. I slowly lifted my head just enough to give him a single, deliberate nod. "Let her do it." Henri swallowed hard. "Of course, Diane. Whatever Julian wants." She smiled, a triumphant, wicked grin, and marched back out to the dining room. She thought she was setting up a feast for the golden child. She didn't know she was just seasoning her own trap. At exactly 8 p.m., the front doors swung open, and Julian walked in. He was trying his hardest to look like the crypto millionaire he used to be, wearing a velvet blazer and an oversized designer watch. But from my vantage point in the kitchen, I could see the frayed edges of his cuffs and the frantic, exhausted look in his eyes. He wasn't here to celebrate a business deal. He was here because he was broke, starving, and knew his mommy could feed him for free. My mother practically pushed a paying couple out of the way to greet him, kissing both of his cheeks. "Julian, my sweet boy, right this way," she announced loudly, making sure the entire dining room heard her. She led him to the largest, most private booth in the back, a table meant for parties of 6, now occupied by one arrogant man. I watched the orders print out on the kitchen ticket machine. Julian wasn't holding back. He ordered the beluga caviar appetizer, a $150 dry-aged tomahawk steak, a side of white truffle risotto, and to wash it all down, a $1,200 bottle of vintage Bordeaux. "Make it perfect," Henri whispered to me, looking nervously at the ticket. "Oh, it will be a masterpiece," I replied, grabbing my favorite chef's knife. I cooked my brother's meal myself. I basted the steak in garlic butter. I shaved the white truffles with surgical precision. I wanted the food to be so undeniably flawless that they couldn't possibly complain to get out of paying. For the next 2 hours, Julian ate like a king. He laughed loudly, snapped his fingers at the waiters to refill his water, and even put his feet up on the velvet cushions of the booth. On the kitchen monitor, I watched the tab climb. $800, $1,500, $2,350. Finally, Julian wiped his mouth with a linen napkin, stood up, and gave our mother a conspicuous wink. It was the signal. Wipe the bill. My mother walked over to the main POS, point of sale, terminal at the host stand. She confidently typed in her employee number, selected table 12, and hit the button for 100% manager's comp, house guest. A loud, angry error buzzer echoed from the machine. On the screen, a red flashing box appeared. Error. Comp limit exceeded. Owner authorization required. Asterisk, asterisk. She aggressively tapped the screen with her long fingernails, muttering under her breath. She tried it again. Error. Owner authorization required. Asterisk, asterisk. Julian walked up to the host stand, looking at his watch. Come on, Mom. I have places to be. Just print the zeroed receipt so I can leave the waiter a $5 tip. Just a second, sweetie, my mother hissed, a bead of sweat forming on her forehead. This stupid machine is glitching. Let me go get Henri to override it. She spun around and power walked toward the kitchen doors, her face twisted in a mixture of panic and pure rage. She pushed through the swinging doors, completely unaware that the new owner, whose authorization she needed, was standing right in front of her, holding a meat cleaver. The kitchen doors slammed open so hard they bounced off the walls. My mother stormed in, her face flushed red with indignation, waving the printed receipt like a weapon. Henri, this useless, ancient machine won't let me comp table 12, she shrieked, her voice cutting through the clatter of pots and pans. Override it right now. Julian is waiting, and he has a very important meeting to get to. Henri stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back. I cannot do that, Diane. The system was locked this afternoon. Any comp over $100 requires the new owner's physical authorization card. Then call the owner, she snapped, stomping her foot. Wake him up if you have to. Do you have any idea how much stress my poor Julian is under? I am not making him pay $2,350 for a meal. As she ranted, her eyes darted around the kitchen and finally landed on me, standing quietly at the expo line. She froze. The anger on her face morphed into profound, unmistakable disgust. Marcus, she whispered, staring at my white chef's coat. I looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time in 5 years. Hello, Mom. She let out a harsh, mocking laugh that echoed in the sudden silence of the kitchen. I don't believe this. You actually work here? What? Did you get fired from your little diner and beg Henri to let you scrub pots? Before I could answer, she turned to Henri, her eyes flashing with pure fury. Henri, this is completely unacceptable. This boy is an embarrassment to my family. I specifically told you we need top-tier staff, not discount fry cooks. Keep him in the back, out of sight. If Julian sees his loser brother in this restaurant, his entire night will be ruined. She pointed her finger right at my chest. Don't you dare speak to Julian. Don't even look at him. Now get back to your dishes while Henri fixes this bill. I didn't move. I slowly reached up, untied my apron, and folded it neatly on the stainless steel counter. Henri can't fix the bill, Mom, I said, my voice eerily calm. Like he told you, the owner locked the system. Then get the owner on the phone, she screamed, losing whatever shred of fake sophistication she had left. Who does he think he is? I run the front of this house. I reached into the breast pocket of my chef's coat and pulled out a sleek, matte black RFID card. The gold logo of Vanguard Culinary gleamed under the kitchen lights. I walked over to the kitchen's POS terminal, swiped the card, and watched the screen flash a bright, undeniable green. System unlocked. Welcome, owner, Marcus Vanguard. My mother stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. She looked at the card, then at the screen, and finally, up at my face. How? She stammered, the color completely draining from her cheeks. Where did you steal that card, Marcus? I leaned across the counter, the 5 years of rejection, silence, and relentless hard work crystallizing into a single, devastating smile. I didn't steal it, Diane. I bought it, along with the building, the brand, and the lease. I tapped the screen, pulling up Julian's $2,350 ticket. I am the new owner, which means, as of this exact second, you're talking to your boss. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. The only sound was the low hum of the ventilation hoods and the sharp, ragged intake of my mother's breath. You own Lorcadie, she whispered, her hands shaking so violently she dropped the printed receipt onto the floor. That's impossible. You're just a cook. You don't have this kind of money. I did what you told me to do, Mom, I replied, stepping around the counter. I went to the drive-thru, and then I bought the restaurant. And 3 others. Vanguard Culinary isn't just a holding company. It's me. I bent down, picked up Julian's $2,350 receipt, and smoothed out the wrinkles. Henri, I said without looking away from my mother's horrified face. Process Diane's termination paperwork immediately. She is no longer an employee here. You can't fire me, she gasped, tears of panic finally spilling over her heavy mascara. I'm your mother. Julian needs this. He's going through a hard time. You stopped being my mother 5 years ago in the parking lot, I said coldly. And Julian is about to have a much harder time. I walked out through the swinging doors, leaving her sobbing in the kitchen, and stepped into the dim, elegant lighting of the dining room. I walked straight to the back booth. Julian was scrolling on his phone, picking his teeth with a gold-plated toothpick. When he saw me approach in my chef's coat, He let out an arrogant groan. Are you kidding me? They let you work here? Julian sneered. Listen, Marcus. Go get Mom. I need her to zero out my tab so I can leave. And don't stand so close to the table. You smell like grease. I didn't say a word. I just placed the little black leather booklet on the table and opened it, revealing the $2,350 bill. Julian laughed, pushing the booklet back toward me. I'm not paying that, idiot. Tell Mom to override it. Mom doesn't work here anymore, Julian. I said, my voice echoing slightly in the quiet corner of the restaurant. She was just fired for attempting to steal from the owner. Julian frowned, his arrogant facade slipping for a fraction of a second. What are you talking about? Fired? Let me speak to the owner right now. You are speaking to him, I said, leaning over the table so I was inches from his face. This is my restaurant, and you just ate a $1,200 bottle of wine and a dry-aged steak. So, you have two choices. I tapped the receipt with my finger. You pay the bill right now, or I lock the doors and call the police for theft of services. I know about the bankruptcy, Julian. I know about the repossessed BMW. The crypto crash. You don't have $2,350. Julian went completely pale. He looked toward the kitchen and saw our mother standing near the doors, crying into Henry's shoulder as a security guard escorted her toward the exit. The reality finally hit him. The golden child was trapped. Marcus, please. Julian's voice cracked, sounding like a terrified little boy. My credit cards are maxed out. I literally have $40 in my bank account. Don't call the cops, man. We're brothers. We're not brothers, I replied. We are a restaurant owner and a customer who can't pay his bill. He frantically pulled off the oversized designer watch he was wearing and shoved it across the table. Take the watch. It's worth 10 grand. Please. I picked up the watch. It was surprisingly light. I flipped it over and saw the cheap, scratching metal on the clasp. It was a fake. Of course it was. I dropped the fake Rolex into the half-eaten bowl of white truffle risotto. Henri, I called out. The general manager rushed over. Yes, Mr. Vanguard. Take this gentleman to the dish pit. I ordered, not taking my eyes off Julian. He is going to scrub pots and clean the grease traps until he works off $2,350 at minimum wage. If he stops scrubbing, call the police. Julian didn't argue. He just lowered his head, completely defeated, and let Henri lead him toward the kitchen. I walked over to the front entrance, opened the glass doors, and stepped out into the cool night air. I stood in the exact same spot in the parking lot where my mother had thrown the $20 bill at me 5 years ago. I looked up at the golden sign of L'Orchidée. They told me I was too poor to eat with them, so I made sure they could never afford to eat with me.